مرحبا.
أهلا وسهلا. تفضل.
عنوان البند اللي بقدمه هو استمرارية للبند اللي قدمته أستاذة نهى. هو يتكلم عن the analysis of the occurrence data of lead in spice mixtures. Next slide, please. The background is that في سنة 24 تم مراجعة الماكسيمم ليميتس لعنصر الرصاص في السبايسز وخصوصا السبايس ميكستشرز. فكان الكونكلوجن انه ما كان في ماكسيمم ليميتس للسبايس ميكستشرز، وطبعا هذا يعني شكل جاب بالنسبه حق تطبيق المعايير والايفالويشن. في 2024 بالنسبة حق الCAC 47 they adopted maximum limit for lead in spices including dried seeds based on CCCF18 proposals. فكانوا يعني أخذوا في عين الاعتبار تطبيق الماكسيمم ليميتس للليد، لكن طبعا في جاب بالنسبه حق مخاليط البهارات ما كان في حقها ليميت معين. Next slide please. فصار في working group، صار في in response to a request by the Codex Committee to support discussions on setting Codex maximum levels for lead in multi-ingredient products. The FAO joined in بالنسبة حق الكوميتي مالها presented a detailed analysis of the lead contamination in spice mixtures using data retrieved from the GEMS database. فتم تم فحص 40,000 sample بين 10 سنين 2014 و 2024، ومن هذين 14,000 عينة فوق 5,000 عينة كانت spice mixtures. وطبعا بالنسبة حق هذه الاناليسز الفايندينج استعرض ان هذين الميكستشرز كان عندهم كمية رصاص ازيد من الانديفيدوالز اللي في، يعني لو اخذوا الانديفيدوال سبايسز بروحهم بيكون عندهم رصاص اقل من السبايس ميكستشرز. اوكي، وطبعا كانوا they were interested في تاثيرهم على الاطفال الصغار. Next slide please. JAFCA's lead exposure assessment for spice mixtures used consumption data from the GEMS food cluster diet. كانوا يبغون يعرفون ان السبايس ميكستشرز شلون نقيمها؟ هل نقيمها على evaluating the product itself ولا بالنسبة حق الconsumption؟ while GEMS food provided broad per capita spice availability, FAO offered more detailed individual intakes. يعني شافوا الانتيك مال كل country من السبايسز. However, limitations include lack of specificity for spice mixtures, limited data for many regions including Arab countries, and small sample sizes, underscoring the need for better targeted consumption. فكان في اختلاف، هل ناخذ evaluation depending on consumption or do we evaluate the spice mixture as a product? Next slide please. فلما خذوا الconsumption data بالنسبة حق الفود cluster diet data, the type of data collected was per capita food availability. بالنسبة للFAO, they took the individual dietary intake. بالنسبة ل Netherlands and other countries, they took the reliable individual intake. فكان في اختلاف في الفايندينجز. بالنسبة للجيمز database حطوا إن there was an average of 2.6 grams per day per person and بالنسبة للفاو كان في طبعا less than gram per day consumption. وبالنسبة ل other countries صار في comparison between الانتيك حق الchildren وبتوين الانتيك حق الادلتس. ففي اختلاف، كانوا لازم يسوون شيء موحد بحيث انه نقدر نقيم هذه المنتجات. Therefore, next slide please. JEFCA proposed 2 potential maximum limits for lead in spice mixtures and evaluated their effectiveness in reducing dietary exposure and their enforcement implications, as summarized below. JEFCA's work provided the scientific foundation for discussions on the feasibility and public health benefit for adopting a codex maximum limit. فكانوا يبغون يشوفون هل is it feasible to take into consideration the consumption, especially that it differs for adults and children. Next slide, please. As part of its assessment, the FAO, the expert committee, JEFCA, evaluated the need for setting codex maximum levels for lead in spice mixtures based on a risk assessment framework. فأخذوا into consideration exposure assessment, okay, for 2 populations, the adults and the children. The adults as 84 kgs and the children 20 kgs and below. Next slide, please. Another method was using the endpoints for risk characterization. JEFCA used health-based guidance values for lead toxicity, خصوصا ان الليد ياثر على النيورو ديفلوبمنت في الchildren. فقرروا values معينه اسمها point of departure 0.6 ppb by weight per day بالنسبه حق و 1.3 ppb by weight per day بعد نفس الشيء. ف these endpoints طبعا مو كل الدول تقدر تقيسهم، لان يعني ماخذين into consideration الconsumption، ماخذين consideration الانتيك، وماخذين consideration الويت. طبعا هذه الفاريشنز بيكون صعب تطبيق this type of calculation and analysis. Okay, next slide, please. Then JEFCA applied an internationally accepted risk assessment framework combining global occurrence data from the GEMS, and it decided that the health-based guidance values were 0.6 ppb by weight per day for children and 1.3 ppb by weight per day for adults. Okay, so the two maximum limits were 2 ppm and 1 ppm. طبعا كل ما زاد ال ppm قل الريدكشن. فهذه as one of our colleagues stated earlier، فبيكون صعب تطبيقها لأن we would have to take into consideration the rejection of the sample، يعني بيأثر على التريد. Okay. The third approach was using the risk characterization results. فلو أخذنا into consideration the maximum limits for children as 0.31 and the adults 0.08 بنشوف إن point of departure would be 52% بالنسبة للchildren and for adults it will be 6%. As we go down, as we increase the maximum limits, طبعا the rejection criteria will decrease. وهذه طبعا this is important in the trade, as I said. So the greatest public health concern is for children, as we can see from the table. Okay. Last but not least, we have certain data from Bahrain, and from this data we analyzed a lot of spice mixtures, including masala, mixed spices, curry powders, Bahraini bazaar, like the ones used, specific ones used for fish, specific ones used for beef and fish. So these are some of the values that we have for the spice mixtures. As you can see, we have the maximum was around 1.8 ppm. So usually the spice mixtures have higher lead than individual spices if we take them into consideration. Next slide. Okay. No, the one before, the conclusions. Lead content in mixed spices in Bahrain. So the key objectives was that 59 samples were analyzed for lead. 7 samples exceeded the JEFCA, indicating a moderate level of non-compliance. And most masala and mixed spices, including the traditional Bahraini mixed spices, show lead contamination, low lead contamination. Higher lead levels and greater variability were observed primarily in certain mixed spices blends and Bahraini bazaar samples, which may reflect complexity in sorting, variety of raw material used, and less control in the cleaning steps and the processing steps taking place in factories. Spices like curry powders and other simple blends consistently show low lead levels, reinforcing the possibility of maintaining safety margins across different spice categories. Next. So now we're talking about the feasibility and impact in the Arab settings. Of course, not all Arab laboratories are equipped with the needed instruments to analyze the spices, mixed spices, and make comparisons, especially on a routine basis. This requires a lot of training, a lot of manpower, and a lot of budget. So the variability in certain mixed spice types collected in the country will require detailed study. Of course, these spices done in Bahrain were collected over a vast period, so not all countries may have this. There will be the recommendation is to have regional collaboration, especially between countries, depending on standards, training, laboratory capacity, and the sharing of information, especially that some brands are used in more than one country. The conclusion and recommendation methodology applied by JEFCA include available international occurrence data and use of high percentile exposure estimates. However, uncertainties remain, particularly due to limited and non-specific consumption data for spice mixtures. As an example, in Bahrain, we analyzed these spice mixtures as they are. We did not take into consideration the consumption, the consumption for children or for adults to evaluate such products. Inconsistent product naming for the GEMS database and sparse regional data from Arab and other underrepresented countries. So the conclusions and recommendations, mainly we require a unified implementation of whatever standards that is used. If it was an example of 2 ppm, or whether it was something based on the consumption level, we have to take that into consideration and unify our evaluation in all Arab countries, depending on the Codex and JAFCA recommendations. And that's it for me.